end by asking you a question, though, because we've talked about lots of arguments for atheism, and sometimes when people give arguments for theism, like they go into the modal ontological argument or whatever, they're not the things that actually motivate them to the positions that they're in. They're just philosophical arguments that they have spent time thinking about and enjoy going over the details of. And I think that probably that's true for these arguments that we've been talking about for atheism too. But maybe you're going to tell me I'm wrong about that. But what do you think that they are part of the actual reason why you feel the way you do about atheism, or is it that you've come to that belief through different reasons, and these are the strongest philosophical arguments you could think of after you'd had your mind set in that direction?
For me, I do agree with you that that's what you describe is true for most people. Seems to be the case, but for me, that's definitely not the case. I mean, when I was a graduate student, I was a Christian theist, and I was going to write a dissertation on the problem of evil, and I was going the evidential problem of evil. And so this is back in the time when the evidential problem of evil was just kind of getting going. People had talked previously mostly about the logical problem of evil. So I thought, well, I want to write a dissertation in which I solve the evidential problem of evil. Problem was, I didn't think anybody had given a very good formulation of the evidential problem of evil. I didn't think William Rose was out there and a couple other people's, Mike Martins and so on, but I didn't think they were very strong. I thought this argument could be made much stronger. So in the first part of my dissertation, I tried to give the strongest argument from evil I could against God's existence. And then the second part of my dissertation, my plan would be where I solve that stronger problem. All right, so I never got to the second part. And then I made a proposal to the Center for Philosophy, Religion in Notre Dame. My proposal was to go there for a year as a postdoc and give a distinctively Christian solution to this problem of evil I had created. So I went there. Plantinga liked my argument from evil a lot. He thought it was the strongest version he had seen, but I never came up. I couldn't solve it. Right. So then I thought, well, maybe the argument from religious experience would still justify my belief in God, would be enough to outweigh the evidence. So I did research on that and wrote a paper called God and Perceptual Evidence that basically argued that argument isn't very good. And then shortly after that, so this is just a few years after my PhD, shortly after that, a student came up to me after class and said, "You believe in God?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, that's the first time I ever said that." So at that point, so it was definitely from the inquiry. Right. The result of the inquiry is what caused me to give up my belief in God. And then I didn't stop the inquiry at that point. It continues. Again, I just last time I taught an upper division course in philosophy religion, I constructed an argument for God's existence based on religious experience, kind of like roughly the stuff I was saying about the holy mountains, but a lot more detailed. That I thought, was a pretty decent argument, and so still kind of keeping me as an agnostic about versatile theism versus global atheism. So I reject both. I mean, I don't believe either of those, but this is helping me keep me away from being a global atheist, right? And so I continue to engage in inquiry and construct arguments and see how that affects my beliefs. And so it continues. But for me, yeah, it's definitely been the result of inquiry. It's just had a major effect on my own religious beliefs and non-beliefs. But I do agree with you that often that doesn't seem to be the case. But, can't tell for sure what goes on in other people's heads, so they'll have to answer for themselves, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's That's really nice. I don't think I've ever. A lot of people, I think, in I don't know whether this is right. I feel like what's true in America is that, and compared to the UK, is that they have much stronger religious views in general, and that means people often change their minds more about. Maybe that sounds wrong, but I think my experience is that lots of people who are atheist have used to be theist, whereas in the UK, I think
Oh, interesting.
it just feels like most people are atheist, just without thinking about it. It's not really thought. It's not really talked about very much, even.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember ever really thinking that much about it until I was an adult, and by that point, when I looked into it, I just found I wasn't persuaded to change my mind. Maybe that's just I'm very closed-minded or something, but like I just didn't seem there didn't seem to be anything that overcame my sort of skepticism about.
Right.
Well, I mean, as we said before, I try and keep an open mind when it comes in a kind of like totally versatile idea of theism. I'm not trying to say I know what's going on is mysterious on some level, but like I know I've just never been persuaded that there's some human like character out there who cares about the comings and goings of people that's like responsible for everything. I've just never found that view. Nothing has been remotely persuasive towards that. So,
right.
As I said before, before we were talking, I don't think my belief in atheism is really based on any arguments. Just my default view, and I don't see any reason to change it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So do you think though that is that partly because you think it starts off with a low probability, so you don't have a burden of proof for your atheism?
Yeah.
Or,
Okay. So I think it just seems it does seem implausible because okay, so I think maybe this is an argument, but that there are obviously instances of people who believe in religions that aren't true, right? I mean, on all but a most like sort of vague sense of like maybe there's something true about every religion or whatever, but like specific claims that people believe are true, that Jesus came back from the dead, or that I don't know, Muhammad was visited by an archangel or whatever, like these specific claims that people think are true. You can't think that all of those are true. So you have to think that a lot of people are believing things that are false. And I think just the idea, it makes me think that the pattern that's going on here is that people are likely to come up with stuff that's not true because it does loads of things for them. It makes them feel better about stuff, injustices and existential angst and stuff like this. It's obviously playing roles in people's lives to make up stuff, to culturally pass that down, and it's useful to identify politically and all sorts of reasons that in things that are false. And if that's what's going on, it just feels like for any of them to be like, oh yeah, but actually this instance of it, this religion over here isn't one of those ones that's false, but it's actually true. I'd need to see something that was like overcoming my prior probability that it's probably just one of those ones, like all the others, where they're just somebody's basically making it up or got it wrong or something, and keeps hold of the idea because it makes them feel better. So I don't. That might be an argument, I guess. Maybe it's a really cliched, obvious argument, but I think that's my thing.
Yeah, I think that type of argument is pretty powerful. I think that maybe, of course, it could be also, instead of it's just people are making things up that make them feel good, it could be that all these religions are, again, in touch with some, what gets these religions started is that humans have some sense of this religious reality.
Yeah.
And that, but then, people take the ball and run with that in various ways and come up with these big institutions and these big elaborate systems of beliefs. And maybe that's a natural thing to do at some stage in our, in our development. but maybe nowadays it might be. It seems less plausible that, again, like you said, well, they all run with it in different directions, though, so they can't all be true.
Yeah.
And so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all just sort of making something up, because there are these commonalities, these strange, themes and commonalities between them. And you might think, well, it's at least possible that, at least we don't, it's not completely impossible that there's some sort of religious reality that doesn't necessarily want to, doesn't want to reveal itself in any detail in sacred texts or through miracles, but nevertheless that we're in contact with. Maybe it's not even the sort of God maybe it's not even a personal God, really, or an agent. Maybe it's some other type of cosmic mind, right, that we're in touch with, and that we, in some way, and that, but that isn't motivated to, or even incapable of revealing itself to us in detail. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So, yeah, I wish in philosophy of religion we were exploring more of those possibilities, whereas it seems like we're sort of bogged down on, the vast majority of people who specialize in philosophy of religion are Christian theists, and I have no objection to Christian theists engaging in Christian philosophical theology. That's fine. I just wish the field was bigger than that. I don't want to throw anybody out of the field. I want more people to be in the field doing all the other stuff that doesn't get done. More philosophy of religion in general, as opposed to philosophy of Christianity or philosophy of Western monotheism, or more philosophy of religion in general, looking at the what is religion, how does it interact with all different areas of human experience? Is there any common themes through it, common beliefs or common experiences or common goals or something? What are all the possible legitimate concepts of God? And could any of them, are some of them more plausible than the ones that so many people in the world believe in? I wish philosophers of religion were doing, in addition to what they do so well, doing a lot of that other stuff as well.